morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where in the world you are and when in the world you are, that you'd be finding yourself watching me, Prof Zee, talk about the new M-Range Limited. And in some of my previous discussions on social media and so on, I highlighted the philosophy behind the design and the thinking process that has led Power Lab and the M-Range Limited to where we find it today, as we're very excited about version 2. But this evening I thought I will focus specifically on some of the technical elements of the design and of the system. There's been a lot of, obviously, requests, people wanting to know more, and also, again, just flesh out some of the structural differences between our three aquarium ranges, specifically on the reef aquarium side of things. And our three ranges are M-Range, M-Range Limited, and N-Range. And a very brief overview is that we started with M-Range 15 years ago, give or take, and M-Range Limited was really about establishing a ready-to-go, plug-and-play, advanced reef aquarium. So for somebody wanting something more than just 2 clownfish and an anemone, but really an aquarist wanting to build a full-blown reef ecosystem, and our solution was M-Range. M-Range is about price sensitivity, so it's not crystal glass, for example, it's just standard glass, and the cabinet works made out of MDF, and also it allows the system to be upgradable or expanded over time. And then years later we launched N-Range, which is our very bespoke, very high-end sort of big brother to M-Range. And very briefly again, N-Range it uses crystal glass. It has a hand-sprayed Chinese lacquered cabinet finish, and what it ended up with as well was its own very unique filtration system called Avery. And in between that period, we launched as a once-off a limited version of an M90, which is the 90 centimeter M-Range tank, and we called it the M90 Limited, and it was produced in the signature full black, and it was really a pumped out M-Range tank. The bigger M-Range lights, the bigger M-Range skimmer, and this particular unit became quite successful, and a few years later we took the decision to expand it into its own range, which today we call the M-Range Limited. And with great success, we kept manufacturing these units, but I always felt that M-Range Limited had the potential for expanding into its own range of equipment with its own signature lighting and so on. And for 2021, that's exactly what we've produced, an M-Range tank in the limited range, and it now includes its own unique life support system and its own unique lighting. You see them above me in the standard versions, and it also has the option of its own hybrid light unit. And this evening I thought I'll just touch on those points. So I think a key element in the philosophy of Power Lab over the years was to never really look at trying to develop something new, try and revolutionize aquarium keeping. What we tried to do rather was to evolve and make subtle positive changes forward continuously, with the understanding that over time it would lead us to build a better, more solid, more stable system that we understood. And of course, because we manufacture such a wide range of products, from fish food to synthetic salt mix to fill the aquarium, specialized coral foods and additives, and all the various reactors and lighting, we were able to produce something that is truly synchronized. And with our Coral Cyborg project, which is our arm that rears and farms and cultivates coral, we are able to do extensive testing, and it's really again led us to the position that we're in now, where we truly have an integrated system. We have a system that quite simply makes reef keeping simple, and it makes it affordable. So if you're new to the hobby, or you're considering getting into the hobby, and you're not quite sure what you need, I'll tell you how it is that we do it. Firstly, we always look at a reef tank as two spheres. There's the technology side and there's the biology side. And if we expand on that a little bit, what you end up with is the life support system and the ecosystem. And I guess the primary objective, if you're out considering getting a reef tank, and it's going to be your first reef tank, or you have a reef tank but you're not really happy with it and you'd like to expand into something else, what you really need to be looking for is what we call the base system. And it's made up of lighting, circulation, filtration, chemistry management, and the actual livestock. So even though we see a reef tank as two spheres, life support system and ecosystem, we also see livestock as part of the life support system. Because with reef tanks, many of the organisms that you would have developed naturally in the aquarium and that you would later purchase form part of the functionality of that aquarium. And I'll get back to that soon. So with lighting, it seems the world over, most aquarists are using LED lighting because they're light, they're compact, they can be affordable, and they, to the largest extent, produce results. Fluorescent lighting, in terms of T5 lighting, is still a great light, but they are more expensive to manage because the globes need to be replaced more frequently. But we still offer this as a hybrid system, and especially for somebody going into stony coral, or somebody really wanting to build up a collection of acropora coral specifically, I think the hybrids make it a bit easier, and they're just a good way to add an enormous amount of light on a small footprint. Although overall, Power Lab aquariums don't seem to employ as much lighting as many of the other systems, and that's possibly because we've got the feeding of the corals down to such an efficient position, using the foods that we've spent years developing and the additives and the supplements that go with them. But lighting is, I think, become a lot more simple in the recent years because of the development of easier to configure lighting systems, and I think we've really taken it to the most simple point while not taking away from the biological needs of the coral. So that's your first part of setting up an aquarium, and with M-Range Limited, the lighting would be more than just sort of entry level. That's where our M-Range leaves off. But M-Range Limited comes with a decent amount of lighting, and it's also a dual channel light. So you have one analog timer that will run a predominantly blue cluster of LEDs, and a second timer comes on later in the day, which then sparks the main lighting source. And we typically run our lights for up to 14 hours. The next thing would be circulation, and circulation largely falls into two categories. The first would be circulation that connects all the life support equipment, so getting water pumped from the life support system up to the main aquarium, and within the life support system getting water pumped into the various components. And with our new filtration system, which we call our Avery, it makes that whole system a lot more simple. So there's one pump that drives the water from the sump, the bottom tank, which we call the sump, up to the display aquarium, and there's one pump that then redirects water within all the componentry at the bottom. So it's affordable, it's lightweight, it's easy to manage, and there's just less that can go wrong, so that you have more time to enjoy your aquarium, as it were, than having to keep tabs on what pumps that need to be serviced, and things can give you hassles, and you don't know where to start servicing or how to strip things apart. It's very, very easy on all Power Lab aquariums, in fact. And M-Range Limited, with its new layout, has really held on to that very simple, very clean design. The second type of circulation that a reef tank really needs is the wave recreation inside of the aquarium, and this gets done quite simply using what today most people refer to as wave makers or stream pumps. And what we offer with M-Range Limited is that it comes with both a digital pump, meaning the wave maker is connected to a little computer management system that allows it to change its power output, so you get, in a sense, different types of waves breaking over your aquarium. And we also include an analog pump, which we feel helps mimic tidal action. So you have, in a sense, then the tide coming onto the reef and leaving the reef as it does in nature, and at the same time you have wave action, because corals are highly adapted to wave patterns and wave flow, and they need healthy dynamic wave currents in order to remain healthy along various sort of points. The one would be to take away deoxygenated water that might build up around their bodies and bring in fresh oxygenated water, and to bring them food, and to help them maintain the integrity of the structure, in a sense. Moving on to the filtration, which is the third step, we use a bit of mechanical filtration, which, if you've had a freshwater aquarium before, you might remember as wool or sponge. Many of the reef tanks today employ things like filter sock systems and roller mats, but we find these are very expensive, they're tedious to maintain, and they're just very big and bulky. And we've offered a very simple mechanical filter that's super easy to maintain. It's super affordable, it has lots of built-in safety features, and it works a treat on a very small cost and space footprint. The next thing then, and it's probably something you've read quite a bit about, or if you've encountered a lot, if it's your first time looking at how to set up a reef tank, is a protein skimmer. And again, with our new suite, it's super simple in that the protein skimmer is really just built into the sump. It utilizes a very powerful pump that's quite efficient, and it gets the job done. So there's no independent components with our new system. There's no bulky skimmer and pipe work to and from, and things to adjust and set and tune and tweak. It's truly a plug-and-play system. And within the actual structural design, you have the safety overflows and the self-regulating of the water level and so on. And I think this is what makes it so unique, is that even though we try and simplify things, we don't take away functionality. We simplify our products and maintain functionality through extensive development, extensive research, and constantly asking questions that take us out of the box, and certainly takes me out of the box as a product designer. And what we always try and do is ensure that, firstly, the process becomes easier for the end user, and that secondly, we don't drift from the primary objective of the product. So our protein skimmers, they can skim protein, and it's an easy product for you to manage, and that's kind of the direction we take with all of the components. That really sums up, I think, the filtration system. Before, we would also use chemical filtration like activated carbon, and on reef tanks we also use specialized materials like zeolite stones and phosphate remover. But since moving to LED lighting, we find that the corals somehow respond differently when those chemicals are available. So to a large extent, we've really limited the amount of those chemicals that we use. Although we do include some material in the delivery package on our saltwater systems, but usually we find that you'd be using it for maybe just the first month or two, and then it gets phased out. And then of course, the base package will also include an electrical system, so it's easy for you to manage things. You would need aragonite, which we include, or the specialized sea sand, which is included in our package, and of course an artificial synthetic salt mix, so that you can use filtered or purified fresh water to fill the aquarium initially. You add the salt in, and you've got good, clean, sterile seawater to the largest pot. And that's really the base system, and that is the components that our M-Range includes, and that's where the M-Range packages end off. But after that, there are some optional extras, which I personally feel should be part of almost any reef aquarium, if it's, well, depending on its size, I guess. But it can become an issue of cost to many people. So I think the nice thing with M-Range is we cut the package there. It's definitely everything that you need. You can very successfully grow coral and have healthy fish for many years, but there would be a little bit of extra testing required and a little bit of extra water changes perhaps, and you'd also have various restrictions in terms of what livestock you could keep and how many fish you could have and so on. So we then talk about a phase 1 and phase 2 upgrade platform, and with our M-Range Limited, those, or almost all of those upgrades, come as part of the system. So what M-Range Limited offers as well would be a bacterial reactor. Most people refer to them as a nitrate reactor, although our machine works a bit different. It's very much an evolutionary response to managing, monitoring, and trying to really push the boundaries on how these reactors work in a way that it makes it a lot more simple again and a lot more user-friendly. So our nitrate reactors don't require all the expensive computer management systems that many good reactors need. And there's not much that can go wrong because of the simplicity of the design, but it's taken us many, many years to develop this. It's what we call our average system, and that's where our life support system gets its name from. And in a nutshell, what it's able to do is, in a sense, redirect or alter the bacterial spectrum within the filter, depending on the actual environment that the tank finds itself in and the reactions occurring within the aquarium. What the M-Range Limited also includes in those upgrade modules is an automatic top-up system, which allows for regulating fresh water as it evaporates out of the tank, so you don't need to do that manually. And that ties in with what we call a calcium hydroxide reactor. And if you've been doing reading on setting up a reef tank, you might have come across articles on calc stirrers. They're also called calc reactors, and our calcium hydroxide reactors modeled around those types of machines. So it's a full, a fairly comprehensive package with all the extras, as it were. So M-Range will give you all the basics and a little bit more to ensure that you can have an advanced reef aquarium ecosystem, but you accept that there's a few limitations in place in terms of how much time you need to spend and not maybe being able to keep certain fish and certain coral. M-Range Limited comes with a lot of those extras built into them. And what those extras do, I think from the beginning, really, is that they reduce heavily the time that you need to spend maintaining your aquarium, because many of those reactors step in and they take away tasks that you would otherwise be left with. They also allow you to stock more in terms of livestock, of a greater variety and greater numbers. So for example, with the bacterial reactor in place, you can have considerably more fish populate your aquarium. You'd have to do fewer water changes. And as a result thereof, it also saves you a lot of money. So for example, one of the things that we have to do on a regular basis in our reef tanks is add in calcium and buffers to help manage the water chemistry. But with the calcium hydroxide reactor in place, it does a lot of that automatically. And the cost of managing a calcium hydroxide reactor per annum is considerably less than adding in the manual chemicals that you then have to do on a weekly basis in the absence of that reactor. Getting into the actual technicalities of it, Avery again is super simple. We have a flow system that brings water from the top of the tank down into the area at the bottom, and it all just pretty much runs itself. Built into the back area is the integrated mechanical filter, then the protein skimmer, then the calc reactor, and we then have what we call a bypass chamber. On larger aquariums, we also include an extended calcium reactor, and then of course a reservoir for the fresh water. And what I'll show you now just briefly is the protein skimmer, because this is quite cool. So it's just a simple lid that comes off. There's a double splash guard, and from there you are able to remove the protein skimmer cup. So it's quick, it's efficient, and it's pretty simple. So to close off, you've got M-Range, which is our entry-level range. It allows you to upgrade if the hobby takes you in that direction. If you're not sure if the hobby is for you, but you want to get a marine tank anyways, it's a perfect place to start. Then we have our M-Range Limited, which includes many of the upgrades, finished in crystal glass, and it leans a lot of its operating system in that sense from our high-end range, which is the M-N range, which comes in our signature white Chinese lacquered spray finish. And M-Range Limited packages include LED lighting, digital and analog flow systems, an integrated sump or filtration housing, which includes a mechanical filter, a protein skimmer, chemical filter, a bacterial reactor, a calcium hydroxide reactor, an automatic top-up system, all the required flow pumps, the heater, and then basic requirements like the salt mix, the sand, basic startup chemicals, the timers for controlling the lighting, and an electrical system. So it's complete, out of the crate. You have yourself a reef tank. You literally just need to add water. So thank you so much for watching this talk, and if you have any questions, feel free to punch them out in the comments bar. Of course, you can check out our website, powerlabaquariums.co.za, YouTube, Facebook, PowerLab Systems, as well as Instagram, PowerLab Systems as well. Take care, bye.